Good morning, it's 12 o'clock on the 2nd of July. My name is Councillor Vicky Slater, I'm leader of BCP Council, and this is my weekly resident Q&A. Apologies for being on a Thursday today. It will also be on Thursday next week as I have an event I can't actually get out of. So slow start today. I'm sure that it will be busy with everything that's been going on in the last few weeks. I'm going to start with just a quick mention about this weekend. The 5th of July is not only my son's 15th birthday, but it is also the birthday of the NHS. So I'm going to end with this as well, but we will be marking that with a clap for the NHS at 5 o'clock on Sunday. But on Saturday night we are asking people to put a light in their window as a mark of remembrance and respect for everyone who has passed away. So just a quick flag up for that. There'll be more information about that through our comms in the next few days. The first question: why were no measures put in place to close roads and car parks ahead of the chaos last week? BH Live were begged to open their car parks. Well, BH Live, if you're referring to the car park at Littledown, that car park is currently being used by the hospital, where we're providing support for the hospital staff. So I'm not quite sure what that BH Live, if you're talking about the BIC car park is open anyway, so we don't need to beg them to open their car parks. Their car parks are open for the purposes of them actually trying to get some income in and provide a service to people around. So car parks were not closed because, as you've just quite rightly put, if we close the car parks, then we'd have less car park capacity. We would have had even more problems with people so-called fly parking. Our officers over the course of 2 days gave over 1,500 tickets to people who were illegally parked. We had all of our staff working. They were working from early in the morning until late at night. They were manning car parks. They were closing car parks when they were full and directing staff elsewhere. So closing roads isn't really something that we can do. We have to give 7 days notice to close any road under the legislation. Even under the emergency legislation, 7 days notice is required to close a road, and there has to be good reason for closing that road. If the road is going nowhere other than to the beach, relatively easy. But something like Shore Road actually leads to a whole community. It's also a bus route, it's also a ferry route, so it's not as practical as you might think. Thank you for telling us about the NHS stations. Okay. Sending wishes from Weymouth Road. Yes, thank you. We are working really hard to get our businesses up and running for the weekend. Shops have now been open since the 15th. Great news about that is that some of them are seeing really good trading. We're seeing some really sensible measures being taken by companies who are limiting the number of people in their shops with queuing systems, and we're supporting them with that. We're reminding people to keep left, really, really simple. If everyone can stay left on the high streets and you know, in the parks and on the promenade, it'd be a lot easier for everybody. But as we know that this Saturday, we're also going to see hospitality open up, and there is the potential for conflict for queuing and the use of pavements by our cafes and restaurants as well as our shops. So we're working really, really hard to get that in place. Visit England have got a scheme called We're Good to Go, which is a kite mark that people are able to put out, promote. So I would encourage you to look out for We're Good to Go. Demonstrates the work that the companies have put in to make themselves COVID compliant and as safe as possible. And I would encourage you to stick with our mantra, which is stay local, shop local. Please, please, please support all of our local traders. They're doing such a good job for us. What meetings do I have with the local MPs after it is they can change legislation? You're right, Barbara. The council does not have the power to change legislation. The council is obliged to comply with legislation. We can lobby, but our lobbying is usually much stronger if it's with lots of other councils. I have a meeting every Friday at which I host with the Chief Executive and the Leader of the Opposition, to which all 5 of the MPs are invited. Sometimes I have 1, sometimes I have 2, occasionally I have 5. We have just scheduled those meetings to go on a fortnightly basis to account for their increasing workload in Parliament. And hopefully we'll get really good responses. I do also write to them every week with an update, so they have a straight line that they can actually come back to me. We have had some great lobbying from them recently. I know Robert Sims has written about travellers. Conor Burns has written about the increase in fines for car parking illegally, is something that legislation is needed. And Tobias Elwood has been working on some other projects with us as well. I also meet with them every fortnight with the police and the Police and Crime Commissioner, and I also meet with them fortnightly with the NHS bosses, and that meeting is happening tonight. There are also one-to-ones that go on with those MPs as and when there are individual issues that come up. For example, we had a meeting regarding the Sandbanks Ferry with Robert Sims, and I've had meetings regarding Bournemouth-related issues with both Conor and Tobias. Why did we have to close Bournemouth Beach? So, Scott, we cannot close beaches. Beaches are public places. We do not have the powers to close them. We have over 80 entrances to our seafront, the 7 miles of seafront from Sandbanks to Hengistbury Head. There's a further 7 miles of coastline from Christchurch Harbour right the way round to Highcliffe. And because of all of that, it is not possible to close. We could close car parks, but you will have seen what we described as fly parking, the disgraceful parking on not only double yellow lines, but in the middle of roundabouts, up on pavements next to bus stops, blocking people's driveways. Absolutely disgraceful behaviour. And do you think that would have been any better if the car parks were closed? Absolutely would not have been. In fact, some of the car parks in town, some of the roads where parking is available in town, were completely empty. So people are just being utterly lazy. We're doing everything we can to try and get those car parking fines increased in the hope that will deter people. We're looking at getting a contract with the help of the local police to tow some vehicles away where those vehicles are particularly obstructive. But, you know, these people will have driven for hours to come down and use the beach. If the car park's closed, they're not going to go home again. We saw that over in Durdle Door, where my colleagues over in Durdle Door were actually telling people the road was closed because it's a pre-booked beach only. Note, it's a private space. It is owned by the private sector. James Weld owns that beach and owns that car park space. The council closed off the beach with the help of volunteers, and people were just dumping their cars because they're saying, we've driven for 3 hours, we're going to the beach. So, you know, it really isn't as useful as you think. Okay. Our play opening on Saturday. Let's talk about something positive. So, as of Saturday, playgrounds and outdoor gyms are allowed to open. We're working really hard to get the grass cut in all of our playgrounds. We have 125 playgrounds. The goal is to get as many open as we can on Saturday. We'll be putting out a press release today. I've asked for a page on our website which actually confirms which ones will be open on Saturday, which ones will open on Sunday. There'll be a few that will wait until Monday. We will not be sanitising all of the equipment in all of the parks. That would cause huge delays, and the minute that actually you have a pigeon poop on your swing or somebody else use the swing, it's completely and utterly lost. So parents, please make sure you take hand sanitizer with you. Make sure that you wash your children's hands when you get back home. It is your responsibility to keep your children safe. We will make sure that there is good signage. We're asking people to limit the amount of time they spend in parks. We're asking to have one adult with children. We're asking for social distancing. And of course, as usual, if it's too busy, go back later. You know, we've got 125 playgrounds. There are a couple of them that will be staying closed. One because it's being decommissioned as part of a project where we've spent £1 million to upgrade other play parks, and one that is currently being refurbished, so that will be remaining closed for the time being. Gracie, we did get keep left signs put on the zigzags. They were all replaced last weekend. If they've gone again, then I'm afraid that's because someone's ripped them up. So we'll do our best to keep replacing them, but there's only so many times we can keep putting it down. But I definitely know keep left signs were added to the zigzags last weekend. Catherine's asking about whether hotels. Yes, hotels will open, which is brilliant news for our tourist sector. It also takes some pressure off because it means people are now allowed to stay as of Saturday overnight away from home. Our businesses are working really hard to make it as safe as they can. They've got staggered check-in times. They're actually reducing their capacity, so they've got time to sanitise rooms in between people that are staying there. They're doing some really great work. Our Destination Management Board have been amazing. Baha, which is our Hotels Association, are doing some really, really good work, and we're working hard to make sure that their life is as easy as it possibly can be. We do expect this summer to be a big, big summer for staycationers. People are, not going to be able to travel to as many countries as they expect. We're waiting to hear today on where the air bridges are. Fingers crossed the country I'm due to travel to is on that air bridge. Otherwise, I will be staying at home too. We do hope that the hotels will be getting a good trade this summer and try to recover the really difficult times that they've had. Thanks to everyone. You know what? We've got some amazing staff. I've been really upset by some of the negativity that's been sent towards our staff. I spoke to a traffic warden on Friday who came up to thank me that we as a council and as a collective of public sector have called the major incident, because he had to call his panic button because of the abuse he was getting from the public to get the police to give him cover while he gave tickets to people who were blocking the road. That is not okay. It is not okay. People who do traffic wardens' jobs are absolute heroes to all of us. I wouldn't want to do their job out in the wind and the rain getting abuse. It's totally out of order that people are spoken to like that. So next time you see a traffic warden and you're parked legally and safely, give them a thumbs up. If you're parked illegally and unsafely, expect a ticket. And that goes in our residential areas as well. I was disgusted to see 2 large Range Rovers parked in Broadstone on the next to the bus stop yesterday. Now, we can't get traffic wardens everywhere all of the time. We work as hard as we can, but do you know what? That makes me so angry. We've got 2 car parks these people could park in. We've got roads you can park in, and instead they choose to park on the pavement. So if you're watching and you were one of the idiots parked on the pavement yesterday, we've got details of your registration numbers. We're not going to be publishing them. That would be inappropriate, but I really hope someone does something about it, because it's just not okay. Zoe, you're expressing the anger of beauty professionals who can't work from Saturday and after. Do you know what, Zoe? I think some of the behaviour in the House of Parliament is disgusting. I've also heard some really awful stuff being said about indoor play centres for children, and that's bang out of order, because my children, I wouldn't have got through the early years of my children without the joy of indoor soft play centres. So, we've got to stop having a go at services that some people don't believe are important. Beauty professionals serve a huge proportion of our population, and they have a right to work. So yeah, I feel your anger and frustration. Unfortunately, if we don't make the rules, we have to make sure that those rules are complied with. And we did have a tanning company a couple of weeks ago who decided to stick 2 fingers up to kept open. Load of people stupidly were using a tanning place, and we went in and we looked at serving a prohibition notice. So we will do it. If people aren't supposed to be trading, we will take action. Someone's asking about Upton Country Park. Tea rooms will be able to open from Saturday. I don't know whether Upton Country Park has sufficient staff to do so, but the good news is that all cafes are allowed to open, bearing in mind the social distancing measures that they'll be taking. So charity shops can open like any other retailer, but they are often staffed by people who are volunteers. Some of those volunteers might be older, they might not be feeling comfortable about working yet, so it will depend on the individual charity shop. In the US, multiple family cases have been traced at the opening of the beach. So we're doing everything we can to prevent the overcrowding of the beaches, but we cannot close the beach. We absolutely cannot close the beaches. We cannot enforce social distancing. If there is a local outbreak, then additional powers may be given to us to allow us to do that. But we do not have the power to close the beaches. What are my thoughts on videos of young lads robbing, stabbing? Yeah, we had 3 stabbings. 3 stabbings. We had the most awful behaviour from a whole load of people. We had huge amounts of police down at the beach. They were doing absolutely brilliantly in managing it. We've got security guards on the beach. We have our CSAS officers on the beach who are empowered by the police with additional powers. So we are working as hard as we can to deal with this bad behaviour. Unfortunately, we saw hordes of people coming down the trains. I have no idea why the train companies weren't able to manage the numbers of people coming down. But now that we've got the major incident in standby mode, we're able to work with the transport police a bit better. With attracts a lot of tourism, the odd bank holiday, sort of wide measure. So loads of measures in place. So some of the measures that we've got in place, perhaps I'll share some of our measures with you. So we have got, let's see, 31 of the 33 public toilets were open. They are open for extended periods of time. Some of them were open all night. Did you know we had 28 separate instances of damage to our toilets, and we had plumbers out from 4:30 in the morning fixing toilets where people were smashing them up. We had 300,000 people on our beaches. Give you an example, Air Festival, you might see 200,000. We had 300,000 people a day. We issued nearly 1,000 penalty notices for illegally parked cars on one day and 500 on the other day. We collected 50 tonnes of waste. We put outreach workers out there to actually protect young people from county lines. We had more security patrols. We had staff on car park entrances. We had our traffic wardens out for longer. We had major incident notices out on Bournemouth seafront and sandbanks. The police had extra patrols. You know, frankly, there's only so much a council can do when people are behaving so badly. Okay, playgrounds will be overgrown. So, Diane, we're getting as many of them mowed as we can. I know the one local to me was mowed on, was it Tuesday when I went out for my run? I noticed it had been mowed that day. We're only notified on Monday, so we're getting them done as quickly as we can. The trade tip, the trade is open. If it isn't open, we'll follow it up, but there are other options you have. As trade waste, there are other alternatives. Our priority is on the free waste for our residents at the moment. Are we going to help stop redundancies in local theatres? So there's a big announcement that's due from the Arts Council next week. We were expecting it this week. We had a meeting booked in with the Lighthouse and the BIC, but that's been delayed till next week because the government have bizarrely delayed their announcement on the funding package. What we can do to stop redundancies is quite difficult. If the government do not stop, if government don't deal with funding in a big way the arts sector, then we're all in a lot of trouble. Do the new speed cameras work? I'm afraid about the speed cameras. Speed cameras are the demise of the police, so you might want to. Literally is a problem. No, right, okay, Martina. There is a real this business about us not having bins. Sorry, it doesn't wash with me. There are empty bins. People will leave their waste. They won't even attempt to go to the bin. If you're sat on the beach, you've got to go past the promenade to get back to your car, your bike, walk home, or to get to your bus. The idea that you could just leave your stuff on the beach because the bin might not be big enough is not credible. People leaving 50 tonnes of crap on the beach, people deciding to defecate in a cardboard box and leave it on the sand has got nothing to do with not enough bins. We've provided more bins. Our staff worked through the night, literally through the night. By the time I got to the beach on Friday morning at 5:45, the beach was already looking pristine, apart from the idiots in the camp, in the tents, who were lying on the beach, and our tractors were having to go round these drunken morons who had decided to sleep on the sand. So I won't take this business that we haven't got enough bins. We've put extra bins out where the bins were overflowing and where people had brought their rubbish to the bin. We've put extra bins out. We have got additional collections going on through the day. But you know what? You can take your rubbish home with you. We do have a policy of leave only footprint. So it'd be really great if people just took their rubbish home. After all, they brought their stuff with them. They can take it away with them. Why are we not making Poole a historic town which is green and leader? Not really something I can deal with today. We've got a massive programme of work going on in Poole. We've just purchased the Holes Bay, with the process of purchasing the Holes Bay power station site, which we're hoping will make a really low traffic community with really good environmental credentials. We've got a reimagining a town centre, which we've talked about before. There's no reason why that can't be fantastically green and eco-friendly. So allowing poor thought out design unimagined, I don't know what you're talking about with regard to that. So you might share that. It's right. I'm going to talk any more about. I've covered that. Swimming pools, I hope they're next. I hope you've signed the petition from Swim England to get these swimming pools opened. I know I'm talking to Splashdown, you know, they're having terrible trouble because there's no reason in my mind why if you can go to a pub or you can go to a restaurant, you can't go to a swimming pool. So I hope they are allowed to open very soon. Also, it's also worth mentioning that our hotels, a lot of them have swimming pools in their gardens, and that takes the pressure off our beaches when people are staying there. So I really hope they are next, and if you can sign the petition, then that would be great. We bought some litter picks. Yes, exactly. Get down there and help with the litter picks. We do have a litter picking form where if you want to do a litter pick with up to 6 of you, I'm going to pop it in now. Hang on. You can actually register your litter pick up to 6 people. I've just put a little note on there. Either grab some bin bags and get down there yourself if you'd like to, or join one of the organised litter picks. Dorset Devils doing great work. Save Our Coastline are doing brilliant work. Okay, still unsure. I don't know why a cinema can open a bowling alley. Unfortunately, they're not our decision. You know, we who knows. Allotment bonfires are allowed. They're not very sociable. Obviously, if you have an allotment and you've got some stuff to burn, then ask the other allotment holders if it's convenient. But bonfires aren't illegal. You just have to be making sure that you speak to your neighbours. And now that people are allowed to be out and about a bit more, it's less an issue. When everyone was stuck inside, it was much more difficult because people had no choice to put up with a stinking bonfire from the door. And to any of my neighbours who think we're having a bonfire, we've got pizza oven and we're still learning how it works. So sometimes if you smell a bit of wood fire, it's our pizzas which are sometimes burning as opposed to a bonfire. When is the register going to be open? It's talking about baby registering. It is already open. So if you've had a baby since lockdown, you've not registered, get down and get them registered. You need to make an appointment. Weddings are allowed to start again as of next week. We are able to take up to, I think it's 30 people at a wedding, depending upon where you're getting married. Most venues are still closed, so it's very much about ceremony only. There are very strict rules. I heard you have to wash your hands before you do rings and then afterwards. I'm not sure whether someone's going to bring a bowl, I don't know. But you can get married. There's also civil partnerships and citizenship ceremonies start again. So do contact the register office if that's something that you're trying to do. Yes, so somebody asked about fines. So let me just clarify about parking fines and towaways. Parking fines are set by statute, they're not set by the council. There are 2 levels. We're at a particular level, we have not a lot of choice about that at the moment. The parking was set years ago, and our team have been lobbying through the BPA, British Parking Association, to get those fines increased because they don't really represent much of a deterrent anymore if you pay them early. Same is true wherever you go. Places like London, they have devolved powers. Some cities have powers around a lot of things like these red routes. We don't have those. We're a brand new council, so whatever we might have planned to do hasn't yet happened. So we will work on that. But in the meantime, our MPs have picked this up for us. They've taken it to Grant Shapps, the Secretary of State, to lobby for increased parking fines. And I hope that comes really quickly so that we can actually make sure that we get that increased parking fine. In terms of towing away vehicles, you have to have a licence, a contract to tow away. Now, at the moment, we have a tow away contract for vehicles that have been abandoned. So when people contact me and say, there's a car left on my street, it's got no tax, got no insurance, it's been dumped, there's weeds growing through it, we can tow that away, but we have to verify it's been abandoned, we have to verify it's legal. We do not currently have a contract we do not currently have a contract that allows us to tow someone away for being on a double yellow line. And actually, capacity-wise, there's no way we could tow away all the vehicles that were on double yellow lines. We do have the capacity at the moment to speak to the police and use the police's powers to tow away if, for example, a road is being blocked. And we've been talking to the police about whether they will let us use that contract in the short term while we get our own contract in place to have that. Bear in mind, we're in the middle of a strategic parking review, which would already been asked to look at these things. And although a business can just click their fingers and contract, the public are not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to just ring up our mate and say, hey, do you think you could tow away some vehicles? We have to have a tender process to make sure it's fair, there's no nepotism, there's no corruption. It has to be good value for money. That process takes months. So that's why we're looking to work with the police in the short term before we can get something proper in place. I know it's a pain, but that's called democracy, and there's not a lot we can do about it. When will customer services reopen? So libraries and customer service centres are due to open next week. Our two first libraries to open will be Christchurch and Poole. They will be opening on Wednesday the 6th, is that right? The 6th, Tuesday, the 6th. There, two are opening on the 6th. The next two, which are Kinston Hub and Bournemouth, will be opening on the 7th. And our customer service centres will be opening at the same time. Over the next few weeks, additional libraries will be opened, but we don't want to do this too quickly because we want to learn from those libraries we're opening early. Not all facilities will be available to everybody, and click and collect type services are available for some of the other smaller libraries. Some of the libraries will stay closed a little bit longer because of social distancing, and also because we have just approved our local outbreak management plan. So if there is a local outbreak, we need to be able to step up really quickly. And to do that, we need to make sure we've got staff. And some of the staff that have done an incredible job with Together We Can over the last few weeks, few months actually. Some of them are our library, so we want to make sure that we have the capacity to flex our staff. So some of that will take a little while. Someone's asking about littering signs. We're not planning at the moment to use the York signs. I've seen them. Thousands of people have sent them. Please don't send me anymore. I've seen them 100 times. They're fabulous. But, you know, we've got our own design team and there's some lovely stuff coming up, which I think is due to be finished next week. I've seen the final designs that are going to be going up all around town. We also have a school project. I think it's either just closed or closed tomorrow, working with children in schools to design anti-littering, anti-barbecues, dogs on beaches and that sort of thing. And we're going to have those up for the summer holidays. So that's all being done. And to be honest, some of the disgusting stuff you saw last week, wouldn't matter what sign it was. Gross. Okay, please do not remove the cycle ban. So the cycle ban has now come in. You cannot use your bike on the prom between 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock until the end of August. If you are caught using your bike, you can be fined if there's a police officer around, and you will be asked to get off your bike and walk. The only part of the prom which you can use your bike, is available all year round, is between the piers, where it is legal to use your bike, and where obviously you've got that wide section of road, which car park is currently closed. But the rest of it, you must walk. You cannot use a barrel bike on that either. Just want to quickly touch on e-scooters. E-scooters are not legal. The government have announced some areas of trial for e-scooters. In the areas where there are trials, e-scooters will be allowed where they have been hired from an official e-scooter hire company thing. We're not aware that we're part of that trial. We're not expecting to be part of that trial. It's not something that we're prioritising. So therefore, hiring scooters in this area will remain illegal. Hiring on scooters in places elsewhere you choose to go. I think Southampton might be doing it. If you go there and you see people on e-scooters, you can only have them if they're through the official hire companies. You have to have a driving licence, you have to be over 16, and they have to be driven on the road. They cannot be driven on pavements. So if they're seen on pavements, the police do have the power to give a fine. I think it's points on the driving licence as well, but I don't know what happens if it's someone who doesn't have a driving licence. But anyway, for our point of view, e-scooters aren't allowed. So if we see people on e-scooters, then where we've got rangers, we'll ask them to get off, but we don't have the powers, the police powers around e-scooters. Okay, looking to see anything else I want to cover. The other thing I just want to briefly cover is about register to vote emails. Some people have contacted us Thank you, Barbara, for sharing the Swim England petition. Please everyone go on and sign it. We have been contacting people about registering to vote electronically. You'll know normally you get something through the post and you fill it all in or you email it back. We're working on a trial to actually do this electronically now because it's actually far more efficient. If we have an email address for you or your family, then we will be sending you your registration to vote electronically. There has been a little bit of consternation because I didn't see it before it went out, but when it went out, I understand that the configuration was a bit odd with the date, and because of that, people thought it was a scam. It's not. We have sent out a press release. There is a page on our website. Not everybody will get the invitation to do it electronically because we are in a trial phase, and of course, we don't have the email address for everybody. There's lots of reasons we might have your email address. You might be a service user. You might be a council tenant. You might have one of our beach permits, or there's lots and lots of reasons. So don't be suspicious if we've got your email address. You might have signed up for e-news. You might be a volunteer through Together We Can, or you might have received support through Together We Can. It's a completely legitimate thing that we're doing. It's obviously hopefully going to save money and make sure we've got more efficient information. What have I missed? Nelly the fish, have your photo taken with Nelly the fish. If you've got plastic bottles and cans and you don't want to put them in the normal bin, we have got Nelly the fish over the summer as a bit of an anti-litter recycling project. So do go and say hello to Nelly the fish. Don't take their rubbish home because they've got no room in the household bins. Really? Come on, Joanne. If you've made a picnic and you've gone to the beach and then there's no room in the bin at the beach, it's seriously telling me you can't fit it in at home. If you hadn't gone for the picnic, you would have had your food at home. I think you're being a bit unreasonable there. If you've made the waste, you deal with it. It's not down to the council to pick up everybody else's waste. Okay, comments about doctors, not what we can do about that. Okay, so lots of people talk to us about, can we have a designated cycle lane along the prom? I would love to do this, but I'm told many, many times that actually because of the beach huts, to have a designated cycle lane along the promenade would mean that either you've got to have it on the beach side, which means everybody's got to cross that to get to it, which potentially means everybody crossing in front of the bikes all the time. And if it's a dedicated lane, then that makes it quite tricky. Or you have it on the beach hut side, which means that everybody's got to cross directly in front of a bike every time that they come out their beach hut. So the general consensus is that because of the way our promenade works, it's actually incredibly difficult to balance that need of having access to bikes and people. So it is something we've looked at. I have looked at whether we could trial it one section of the prom to see whether it actually worked. There are other things that can be done as far as chicanes and things like that, but they're all quite problematic. So I think we just have to recognise that until we have a really, really good system of cycle lanes on every road and people respect cyclists, give them space, and understand that spending money on cycle lanes on the majority of roads around town so that people feel safe cycling on the road, then you're going to expect more people to want to use a space where there are no cars. Yes, there are some incidents with bikes. We probably had a dozen reported. There might have been 2 dozen reported, 2 dozen in actuality. But compared to the number of people that might have died as cyclists on the road, and the impact of the sorts of injuries that you get from a cyclist, it is massive. So by all means, we'll spend millions and millions of pounds putting cycleways and slowing the traffic down on the roads. That's the alternative, because it should be possible for anybody, whether you're 6, 60 or 96, to get out on a bike, feel safe, and feel that you're not actually going to be hit by a car at speed and killed. So until we've got to that point, we have to accept that people want to be able to cycle somewhere where there isn't traffic, and we're going to have to work on that. Okay, it's gone 12:30, so I am going to call it to a close. I will just remind you that so cycling is allowed up to 10 o'clock, Fiona. Just really, really clear. Until 10 o'clock, are perfectly okay to cycle on the prom, and after 6 o'clock you can cycle on the prom. So that's all good news. Somebody's laughing. I don't know if that's a good sign. Just they're laughing at me. I don't. Anyway, finally, the 5th of July, as well as being Isaac's birthday, happy 15th birthday, Isaac, who isn't watching today because he's at school for the one and only time this summer, is the NHS's birthday. So today, please put a light in your window to pay your respects and remember those people who have died. And then on Sunday is a 5 o'clock clap for the NHS. Please do come to your doorstep, and if you know somebody that works for the NHS, please, send a message of support. They've done an incredible job. They look after us all the time, and big up to the NHS. So next week it will also be Thursday. Bizarrely, I'm actually unavailable on Wednesday because of some harassment that's been going on. I'm in court. Not in, I'd just like to add. So it's worth mentioning. So we do take harassment of public sector people very seriously, and it's awful when it happens to people, whatever their job. So I will see you next Thursday at 12 o'clock. And in the meantime, don't forget, you all have counsellors in your ward. Local issues should be dealt with by your local counsellor. That's what they're there for. Some of them will be on here today. Some of them will put their email addresses on. But if you go onto the website, onto the counsellors page, wherever you live, you can look up who your counsellor is. Get them working for you. So final message, only footprints if you go to the beach. Park safely, be respectful, and thank you to the NHS. Bye-bye.